Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and broadcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. Happy New Year, David. How did you ring in the new year?
Thanks, Jessie. Happy New Year. I rang in the new year, party with friends, and my daughter who came home from college. So it was nice.
Aw, that's fun. Yes, we were with family in Chicago. It was a good time. But happy to be back, and we have a really exciting guest to talk to today. So today on Deconstructing Data, we're thrilled to welcome Louis Lombardi, CEO of Wallet Group and founder of Insider Data 360. Let me bring him in here. Welcome to the show, Louis.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Not too bad.
Hey, Louis. Great to have you on the show today. Would love to have you kick us off and give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and Insider Data 360 and the Wallet Group, and let you kick it off for us.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. David and Jessie, thanks for the time today. So I guess I'll start with, I'm a data guy, I'm a technology guy, marketing guy, kind of wrapped up into one. So been doing software development for about 20 years, consulting company, primarily focused in pharmaceutical and manufacturing and a number of different industries kind of in between, but did that for a good part of about 18 years. And 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to get involved with some really unique data opportunity. It's always, been on the top of my mind to kind of take what we've done and bring it into, take that data and kind of apply it to some of the beautiful designs and, beautiful content and everything that we create. So a couple of our manufacturing accounts, and we do large scale Magento, were asking us, okay, we have very specific content and product and customer service reports and things like that we generate for unique individuals, right? For the procurement, for management, for VP of purchasing and things like that. So what we ended up doing is building our own, call it micro visitor identification, where we started to kind of bind different contextual pieces of information back to an IP. So when an individual would come to one of our customer sites, we would start to identify who they were because of their entrance and their IP and different behavior, even if they're not logged in. And we would actually entirely reshape what that website looked like. So different products, different services, even different, offerings would show up to different people, but it was all the same site. We used to do that with really cool stuff with JavaScript and kind of real time on the runtime. So kind of fast forward into that, we thought to ourselves, could we start to scale that? And we took some of this very primitive, again, visitor identification technology, and then we started to package it into a universal pixel and give it some robustness, give it some scale with Amazon. And so, then we took the product into market, like I said, 5.5 years ago. I don't know exactly what date we incorporated, but we kind of spun that off as another company, Insider Data 360, and it became this unique data pixel that a brand could put at the top of their website, footer, header, even in the center. And we would turn on average 50% of web traffic, anonymous web traffic, into postal. And we had other features, like we would do form enrichment for fall off on checkouts or fall off on forms and things like that. And that started to grow a little bit organically with the business that we were working with. But what we found out is that the industry was, when you produce mail, you produce addresses that need to be mailed, everyone's kind of tied in with a printer. And so the way to scale that was to partner up with various different printers coast to coast. And so we spent the good part of about 4 years strategically aligning with these printers coast to coast, so they could ultimately kind of package this into their software packages or package it into their offering, and then be able to resell that to end customers, which could be a Harvard or a Lowe's or an Applebee's or whoever might want to enrich people that are coming to their site and then produce mail off of that site. So go to Lowe's, see a Weber grill. 3 days later, you get hit with a postcard that says, here's a 20% off Weber grill. That, all started with the identification pixel that we built. So that, kind of fast forward now, we have that pixel deployed on about 11,000 different sites, some subdomains, some normal domains, but a pretty robust portfolio from all sorts of industries. And we're enriching about 70 million addresses every few days. So it's a pretty large operation. We have a great, small, nimble team, and we've been able to do a lot of things all remote to be able to kind of piece this pixel together on a massive scale. And then kind of fast forward, what kind of excites me today? Everyone says now, what's next? And so during the pandemic, we all kind of saw this rebirth of that QR technology, and consumers started to gravitate towards touchless mechanisms and engagement. So we took the idea of that QR pixel and we kind of bolted that on with digital e-cards for Apple, Google Wallet, and kind of allowing brands to build these loyalty digital cards and be able to deploy these cards very quickly with scans, with clicks. Filed a couple different patents with the technology, and that's kind of I say it's my passion project. It's my full-time job at the moment. That's where I kind of work a lot on a daily basis. And then again, we kind of commingle our brands together. There's a lot of overlap between the brands that we work with on both sides, but all of it's data, all of it's kind of meshing the two together and kind of working in a very harmonious fashion.
Oh, that's really interesting. You guys are doing some really great work there, and it's all very similar to some of the work we're doing at BDEX. So this is going to be a really great conversation. And to kick us off with a really sort of broad topic, so you can really take this any way, Louis, enrichment and data mining. Can you kick us off with this first topic?
Sure, absolutely. So, there's a lot of different, ways or techniques to data mine, and maybe I'll focus on some of the things that we do right now to start to put together those data and create the data enrichment, right? So I'll kind of lean back on what we've done with our Pixel, and so that was, ultimately we wanted to build this fingerprint mechanism. Now there's device graphs, and there's a number of different things that you can start to build or ground you to an individual, whether it's at the device level, the household level, or a kind of an omni approach where you're trying to tie multiple pieces together to a single user. But that enrichment starts with looking at like pattern tracking and classification and some of the associative data points that you can append to start to enrich. So, you take this point, and nowadays it's how many different appends and layers can you start to piece together to create this really robust enrichment profile. But you also have to blend that too with a lot of cleansing and keeping that information as clean as possible. Because what I see in the industry, and our data is very clean because we're like the first party data, right? We're being applied at the site level. So we're enriching specifically with contextual information pulled from the site, from the user. But sometimes the services will kind of build together, if the source data ends up being bad and then you start to further append that data, you can end up with a cluster of information that like is all kind of disjointed. And so we always want to make sure that that fingerprint and that identification piece is as pure as possible. And then that's kind of the magic. Once you can create and data mined all this data on top of the fingerprint and the enrichment, everything can be really robust and you can provide unbelievable value. And I know our group has, I know your group has as well. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on some of the enrichment and data mining, how they kind of work together.
Yeah, it's a good point. First, going backwards a little bit, love the journey of taking data to customize the web experience to turning it into the ability to also reach the consumer offline. Love that journey. It's one that's that we work in that area a lot as well. We've seen our customers achieve a lot of success with that as well. So great to see your success with that journey. And with respect to the way you're focusing on data quality at the data enrichment level is really, really important. And I think that's worth emphasizing because we've seen and experienced a lot of problematic situations where, like you said, you think you have a quality data set, but once you inject a poor data element, whether it even just be a single record or a field within a record, things can get really out of hand, right? And so you end up in a situation where the overall quality of your product or service suffers from allowing that to happen. So I think that, to your point, being able to use as much first-party data as possible in order to enrich your data set enables you to sort of have that control, right? And make sure that you're providing or creating a data set that's as quality as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why we also take, pride in some of the data. We're always cleaning and appending and also cross-referencing a handful of times. I don't know how many times I've seen in the industry where someone does a single append and I just, it blows me away that someone's not taking, and again, we don't do a lot of appends, but the append could be behavior, right? It doesn't even have to be,
Mhm.
PII or something like that. It could just be, we're trying to append cross-site information to build out a user journey of me going to multiple bank sites over the course of 30 days or something like that. And it blows my mind that some companies just, they'll append some information and they're not going to recheck that or take another piece in that data set to bring it back to that pure source and say, yeah, it is this person or that is a true journey. They just append blindly, and then they wonder, when you put this data together, you're like, it just looks wrong or disjointed, and it's all because you just quickly append because it looks like the IP and the IP are together, and that just makes sense to run with it. And anyway, I think it's a definitely an iteration process to get data mining done correctly. It's those techniques, but it's appending and then cleaning and then doing that again over and over again until you are absolutely darn sure you have a clear and pure piece of information that can apply to that ultimate fingerprint that you're about to give out to the customer.
Yeah, it's a valid point, and I think it actually brings us, Jesse, right into our next topic, because I think the metadata can be a way to help you sort of track what data you're appending, right, and making sure that you know where that data is coming from.
100%. Yeah, and so obviously, to your point, David, that metadata is so important, and you know, not just for outlining what the schema looks like, and using it for performance. A lot of times, your DBAs are going to get focused on that. Like they're just going to kind of bring this metadata, and they're like, it's because we want to, do all these, asynchronous calls, and we want to make sure it's in peak performance. But what a lot of times people forget is that it allows great enrichment, right? If you can really build out this, really robust meta profile against all of these different data slices, you can really marry some amazing data and make sure the integrity is there. But the second part of this, right, the semantic data actually gets me more excited in all this. And that's part of my journey with the Wallet Group and why I got into that brand. I love the idea of giving contextual and real world content to data. It just, to me, I think that's where data needs to go to become like, that's the next evolution outside of the AI and figuring out the patterns and using neural networks and things like that. I think it's really, how do you bring it and bring it into the world of the consumer in a totally different format? So let me just give you an example of maybe what I'm talking about instead of more less abstract. So like take geo, right, as a property. So I kind of move about, right? I might, go to drop my daughter off to school. I might be going to the movies. I might be doing things. So what I don't understand is that why don't different ad networks, why don't different, just take advertisers as the example. Why don't these groups follow me and respect where I'm at? So if I'm in a movie and I'm looking, for information, why would any type of video advertisements have an autoplay feature? They know I'm in a movie, though, know I'm in an area that should be silenced. Or if I'm inside an airport, why am I getting served ads 2 doors down, right? And again, this can be done at some of the data level, but it's not always done. It's just not there. So I'm looking at some of my notes I was just writing down earlier I wanted to discuss, but like even like wireless configurations. If I'm hooked up to a local Wi-Fi, that means I'm here and there. I'm kind of browsing in that ecosystem. Give me information or advertisements or whatever the form of media is that's completely relevant to my experience, my hardware. Have it listen to me where I'm at, listen to the audio contextual clues around me, and make that data very relevant to me and my experience. And hands down, I will buy a lot more. So anyway, it's semantic data. I can go on and on, but that's what really excites me about some of the wallet stuff. It's very kind of in the environment, in the world of hardware, and kind of tying together data with real world contextual clues to bring it a lot more relevance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of creating relevant experiences. To that point, one of my frustrations is the increased regulation. I think that the increased regulation, and the pressure that that has created on vendors such as Apple and Google, has forced us to be in an environment where there's less data available in many of those cases, whether it be location data or whatever. Data that could be really, really valuable in creating a more customized experience sometimes just isn't available, unfortunately.
Yeah, completely agree. We've seen it in all my different brands. I've seen it kind of come in different forms and flavors. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm wondering if the different hardware that's going to start to come out. Or you get the new Oculus, you get the Vision Pro, which super excites me. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm an Apple fanboy, so I'm excited to kind of see what they're going to do with the Vision Pro. But maybe it's that we don't have enough hardware that kind of ties in to what we're doing. Now, again, of course, we'll see some, regulations come around the Vision Pro and when we can serve information when people are in that, AR experience. But I don't know. To me, I think we need a little bit more hardware to deliver us some more data, some more semantic data that we can then marry with some of our contextual and advertising data to bring it full circle. But yeah, regulations, it's a tough one, right? Like it's a balance. It's a balancing act. Relevance, respect for privacy, all that stuff.
Yeah, and going further, I'm going to dig a little deeper into some of the privacy issues because it's something that you addressed and something that Google's talking about, and so I'm curious to get your thoughts on. Google's been talking about obfuscating the IP address, and I think that it's going to break a lot of technology that's out there, including some of the things that you were talking about. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. What your thoughts are on whether that actually moves forward with Google, and how companies like yours and others are gonna handle that.
Yeah, great question. And I don't want to speculate what the big tech giants are going to end up doing with that. I can see the writing on the wall that they're certainly trying to respect people's privacy in as many ways possible. I think it would be very difficult for them on many levels to do away with an IP, but potentially maybe getting into more temporary IPs like we see at the device level, where you can kind of mask your IP or kind of roll that through um,
Mhm.
a local IP pool. So I can see some of that technology out there, but I think the way that advertisers need to start to combat this is they need to, once you start to build, I don't know if you've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of like device fingerprinting right at the
Mhm.
um, client level, right? We could start doing, just to kind of pick on one technology, right? If we could start to, build our own internal device fingerprints, which is what we have done in our company. Like we don't rely on IP. We recognize, of course, that rotates and there's a number of inherent problems with IP. But let's say we just did away with it. I think you need to start to build out your own multi-point algorithm to identify a user, which is ultimately a fingerprint, right? There's multiple entries that you can identify me with, right? That's the idea, is that it's not just the thumbprint that says the IP that says this is Louis. It's all of these together. They can stand alone or they can work together to really identify who I am. So, it's server side fingerprinting, it's client side fingerprinting, it's binding it back to different MADs that rotate on the device, those mobile identifiers. I think you kind of bring all these together, similar to Omni in marketing, but bring all these things together and you build your own fingerprint that you can, highly rely on. And at the end of the day, look, if they decide to go on the complete far spectrum to go privacy crazy and just do away with IPs and do away with all this, have to opt in for every single thing we do, well, the consumer experience will ultimately be diminished and only be boiled down to, like, if you're here and there, this is the information that we can share with you. And they're going to have to outweigh that experience. And I think that's the tough one that Google wrestles with, or Apple wrestles with. They want the experience to be there, but they are so hard pressed for privacy. And I think they deal with that problem every day.
Yeah. It's one of those frustrations that I've always had, because everyone I've ever talked to has always said the same thing. Like, everybody wants a more customized experience. I think that there's sort of this misconception that the consumer wants more privacy. I think it's more of a government related issue and less of a consumer related issue, because most consumers you talk to will tell you they wish their experience was more targeted. Like, I always use the example. I mean, I haven't been to a McDonald's in 30 years, but I see McDonald's ads every day, and I'm not in the market for a car every day, but I see a car commercial every day. You know what I mean? It's just, it would be so much more effective to be able to target the consumer on things that are of interest to them in the here and now, right? And that's, I think, in every conversation I've ever had with anybody about this, they agree, and they've said the same thing. So it baffles me how much our government talks about the importance of privacy and limiting tracking and all these other things, which sort of forced Google and Apple's hand to do the things that they've done. And now it's making the consumer experience less desirable.
Definitely. Well, and what is privacy? I guess the government has just one opinion and they do one thing, but is that, really protecting anyone? I guess that's the debate that's everyone's talking about. So, on our next topic is visitor identification. So, this is another one of those where I think we could both, talk about this in many different ways. But you are our guest. Louis, could you please kick us off on the topic of visitor identification?
Sure, absolutely. And I feel like this topic is just, again, kind of a continuation of our discussion. And that is, do we identify the user? That's the real question, is do we? So just little context, right? Our insider data 360 pixels, all based on identifying a household. So we have to kind of boil down the word into identification. And in my business, identification is a home address, which is still considered public domain these days, and being able to transmit that experience from online to offline. And that's where we think there's great value, and there's all sorts of stats that mail is on the uprise in terms of open rate, and millennials being able to consume more mail and kind of read through it and spend more time than mobile advertisements and things like that. But if they, to go back to the conversation we were just having, if the privacy then starts to bleed into offline, that like you can't take those experiences to offline, you can't take them to the home, you can't identify address falls under PII, and again, different classifications of PII. It really will boil down to what the identification is, and I think what regulatory stipulations will be wrapped around the identification. But in our world, visitor identification for us is kind of at the household level, and we enrich a bunch of different data pieces right from behavior. Because to your point, David, as you mentioned, right, it's not enough to go visit honda.com, right, and take a look. They got a great lineup as an example. And what our vendors demand from us is that when we're going to go mail Louis at his home address a Honda advertisement, for example, or a piece of mail that might come in my mailbox, our data will look at all of the behaviors, so contextual clues from like what ads got them there, or keywords, how long they spent. It'll look at the visits, the scrolls, the clicks. It'll look at the actual mouse movements, and actually put together with a little bit of AI and pattern matching, and it'll identify what vehicles I most likely would be interested in buying based on my household, cost of living and where I live and the house that I'm in, and all these different contextual things to say, Louis looked at 30 cars, but most importantly, he was looking at the CRV or whatever it might be. And the mail piece that would get mailed to my home should be and is the CRV. So we're kind of taking that behavior, but the identification piece in this puzzle is the home address. And that's really the question mark. Should we continue to be allowed to use this? And I think yes. I mean, address, yes, but could change in the coming years, right? It depends at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, direct mail is something that's been a big business for my entire lifetime, right? So I think it would be difficult to sort of take that away, but you never know. Having the ability to tie, what someone's doing online and matching it to their offline, to me, I see it as a benefit. It's an opportunity to reach a consumer that is with content that is relevant to them. So I think it's a good thing. Do I think on the same level as our government? I don't know. Not always.
Yeah, agreed. And just to kind of dovetail off what you're saying, David, too, like, of course we stop at the home, but like all these different, everyone's looking to do those further appends. So once you have the home, you have the people, you can do another enrichment to see if they have kids and political views and all this stuff. And next thing you know, you have a whole, enriched household, and you can tie that back to a social device graph and pull all their handles and things like that, and then target them on Facebook. So where do you stop? Where do you draw the line? I don't know. And I too, as well, don't, always agree with all the regulatory pieces, because I'm a consumer myself and I value getting relevant information. And that's where I think potentially, this is a big potential, that semantic data may come more into play as we continue to move into this more privacy centric world. Is, can we bring information in? And so maybe we don't know the home, but maybe we know generally that person was at the street, and it would be up to the advertiser to mail the block, or they know that there's active interest on the street level, and it'd be up to them to drop information at that street. We all know the people that they do, someone gets their roof done, next thing you know, you got someone knocking at your door, hey, we're doing the neighbor's roof, do you want us to do your roof? So maybe it's one of those where if the privacy just became absolutely unbelievable strict, right? We just kind of take it to the highest level, which is these people in these general areas are looking at your site, do something about it, right? There's some interest, but I think that's the furthest extreme. I don't foresee that in the very near future.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Well, there's a lot that we could really unpack here with visitor identification. Is there anything else that either of you would want to add on this topic?
I think we covered it on my side.
All right. Well, then let's get into tech stack. Louis, this is something we ask all of our guests here on Deconstructing Data. What are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Yeah, we do have a lot, and I won't talk for our team, but I will be honest, we do have a lot of homegrown tools that we have built for scalability. A lot of the stuff that we do in the world of the wallet these days is highly untested, right? Because it's a new space, it's a new market, new industry, and we kind of consider ourselves making new leaps in that space. So we do simulations for scale, right? What is, I have to give it a little more context. Imagine you download a loyalty card from, I'm picking a brand randomly, let's say it's a whatever, Costco or a Pepsi or whatever it might be, and it's a card in your wallet and it gives you perks and things like that. Well, sending out messages, informative messages via the card, or updating those cards, doing that for a few 100,000 people is okay. The timing's good. And what about a few million people? That's still okay. What about 150 million people and the latency of dealing with global gaps between different countries? So some of the tools that we're using are purely just like load balancers and different different technology stacks to kind of push the bounds of how quickly we can administer that data, unpackage it, consume it at the device level. Think about if it was an emergency card and how quickly we need to deliver information to call it 500 million people know of some type of disaster that's happening, and what does that look like? How does that get co-clustered across different servers? So I don't necessarily have like a out of the box toolkit that I'd say that our team is using, but we're doing a lot in Amazon cloud services. We're doing a lot of different things homegrown on even just LAMP servers that we're trying to simulate like what it would look like at a local level. And that's where I play with, like I said, that's where I play a lot of days, is kind of in that wallet world, in that space, kind of exploring the scalability of some of those technologies.
That's really awesome. I know we hear about AWS quite often. Um, anything else that he mentioned that we hear about too often here, David? I don't know. I guess you didn't name them by name.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing I'd ask is, like, people tend to want to hear what you use in your daily on your daily basis. So, like any, unique email application, or like, we use Slack a lot, for example. I use a tool to create, we use a tool on our end to create video clips from this podcast called Video, which is kind of neat. But sort of like, our day to day is really wrapped around things like Slack and Jira for project management and things like that. Are there any tools that you use on a daily basis just to make your day, more convenient?
Yes, that I can answer, right. So a couple of our called tools of the trade. So I don't know if you've heard of the project management. So I've been a Basecamp fan for many years, and we ultimately switched to a new company. This is a long time ago, call it 8 years ago, to Teamwork PM. I think they're a fantastic project management studio. They allow our customers to kind of come in. So when we build custom cards, or we might have to do a custom layer on one of our data pixels with insider data, we'll invite that customer in and deliver that information. So Teamwork PM is a really great tool. It's great for our project managers, great for the account managers, great to kind of bring in the customer and keep them in the know, but also track that billing kind of behind the scenes. Other tools, I know our marketing folks are using some AI video tools to kind of go down that particular line. So HeyGen is the one that they're working on to create a whole bunch of avatar videos for some of the dashboards that we have with our digital cards. So they're doing avatars of me, which is quite scary, and avatar other CSRs to try to help educate people, where you actually be able to go to our channel, type in a question, and instead of just answering a chatbot, it'll bring up an interactive video with me or one of our customer service reps kind of talking you through the dashboard with a little video that kind of shows the dashboard in real time. Just trying to think of anything else top of mind that we use on a regular basis. The only other one in terms, I mean, this is again, thinking on the marketing side, just some of the things that we're doing on outreach. I don't know if you heard of woodpecker.io, but great cold email tool. So that's tied into our HubSpot account. That's tied into our MailChimp account. So we have a newsletter. We have our own database with our own cadences that we've built. And then that's tied to like woodpecker.io. That's an aggregate of like cold email sequences. So we have 7 to 10 sequences that go out every week. And there's a whole decision tree that kind of come out based upon the responses that we get going out to SMB and mid-market business owners. But if you're doing any type of cold email outreach, great program. We've been using that for a couple of years.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's good feedback. There's some new tools in there that I haven't heard of before, so I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll have to tell my friend, because I know someone who works at Woodpecker. So that's great to hear. And, we ask a lot of our guests these 2 post-topic questions when time allows. And it looks like we have a little bit of time. So, Louis, if you could go back to when you first came into the industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Great question. So I would say on the data side for Insider Data 360, to bring this full circle, I wish I knew the regulations that were going to be around, like CCPA and GDPR, before they came around, right? There would have been things that we would have done development wise to, we've probably spent way too much to even say in this podcast to combat some of the changes in the industry. So if I could tell myself one thing, I would have said work faster, because things are going to change much quicker than what we thought, right? We didn't realize things were going to change that aggressive in the industry of data. So if we could have gotten to market a little bit quicker, that's something I would have told myself. And then in terms of the wallet group and just looking at card technology, wallet technology, that's still so underdeveloped as a medium, marketing medium, as a rewards medium. But it's been, it blows my mind as it's been out for, about 10 years, good part of 10 years, the digital wallets, when they were created by Apple and Google, they just haven't been, used to their full capacity. So maybe looking back, if I could have had any point, and I'll end with this on the topic of what I would have told myself. So for our business, for Wallet Group, it really took the adoption of a QR code that's, again, kind of been revitalized for our organization to be able to scale up the cards. It was the right place at the right time. So just, if I could tell myself that, if we could maybe go back in history and be able to see some of the problems that some of the QR code didn't get the adoption, and kind of use that. Maybe the QR code just didn't have people didn't have a good reason to scan a QR code. Scanning it, going to a web page, maybe the experience was too light, and tying it with digital card would have enhanced the experience. So maybe going back and kind of re-looking at things that were out there and trying to be more of a maverick in the industry and an innovator, maybe that would have been interesting, and that would have changed things quicker.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. You mentioned QR code, so so no, I really like that you brought up, the changes with GDPR and CCPA. I can't keep track of all of them, because yeah, you're so right, and I don't think anyone's ever answered that question that way. But that's a really good one. And going off that, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from past jobs before you got to where you are now, or in your current roles, that you think everyone should know?
Yeah, I guess I would say, just, a lot of times, and this is now coming, this is the software engineer probably coming out of me, but a lot of times, when we do our whiteboarding sessions and we're kind of building out architecture, we kind of build for this one roadmap. And so lessons learned, roadmaps need to be very nimble, and you need to be able to pivot. I mean, sometimes now we even do 2 or 3 iterations in tandem. We know it's going to be a little more spend, a little more time, a little more resources to put it together. But the outcome is, we won't build something which takes time, money, energy, effort, and we get there only to find out that something drastic has changed, and that time is gone and you can't get it back. So being nimble and being able to, have a couple of contingency plans or backup plans, and run them in parallel, so that, when you get to that spot that you think you're almost done, you can, you have a couple of options at your fingertips to be able to continue to move forward at a rapid rate and not have to take 3 steps back. That would be a lesson learned. So invest in yourself, invest in backup plans, and building contingency, because it pays to be ahead of the curve. It pays to be first in market.
Great point. I mean, being nimble is so important in this industry, especially, right? It changes so fast that, to your point, you can map something out and build and start building it, and by the time you complete it, everything's changed, and now you have to go back and rethink it, right? So I love that idea of sort of coming up with multiple iterations of it from the start, so that you can quickly pivot. So we've seen that for sure in this industry, because it just changes so fast. It's so important to be nimble.
That's it. 100%.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That is great. So, in closing, Louis, what would you tell our listeners in terms of how they can find you? Where should they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you can go to my LinkedIn, that's probably the easiest way to find me, or either one of our websites will end up going through customer service. So probably, I guess the short answer would be, is if you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share that after the podcast. I don't know if I can chat that, but I'll put that in, and that's the easiest way. Drop me a note, drop me a message, and start talking to me. I'm very approachable when it comes to data and marketing and wallet cards. That's what I live, breathe, and eat all the time. So happy to have any conversations with any one of those topics.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on the show today. You've been a great guest, and look forward to chatting with you again sometime in the future.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely.
David, Jessie, appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And real quick, audience members, we hope you'll check out BeatX's Omni IQ. I threw the QR code up on the screen for those of you who are seeing the video. But if you're listening to this on podcasts, simply go to beatx.com, click the try for free button, or use the QR code on the screen to create an Omni IQ account. And once you create your account, you can upload a CSV file of your first party customer data, and you'll get gender, birth year, and household income analytics on your data complimentary, no credit card required. Of course, you can upgrade and expand and then learn more about your audience. And like I said, expand that audience as well. But we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear what you think of the show. If there are any guests that you think we should have on, please let us know. You can reach us at info@beatx.com and share your qualitative data with us so we can make this better for you. So thank you all for being here. And thank you again, Louis, for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.